Welcome everybody out to Speed Racing Network, where tonight we are at Round on the Outside, high in the middle Ohio, for the Mid-Ohio Racecourse. My name is Sean Griffith. I am here with Brandon Domain. How's it going tonight, Brandon?
Oh, it is pretty good, and I know I've got a couple friends that are actually from out in this way, and they would like me to throw out an OH out there for everybody that they can finish that the rest of the way. But yeah, hey, excited about this one. We had road course racing last night, close out the road course portion of the season throughout all of SRN tonight, and a pretty tricky racetrack as well.
It is a very tricky racetrack, but one that I really do enjoy. I love all the twists and turns here. I love all the elevation changes. It really makes you finesse the trucks around.
Yeah, it absolutely does. And it doesn't have the drastic elevation changes over the course of a lap like you'd see at a Circuit of the Americas or a Road Atlanta or anything like that. But it just has a continuous kind of elevation shift on you. There's about 100-foot variance from the high point to the low point, but it just constantly keeps going up and down, really gets that truck light at some points. And that's going to be a handful for these guys, especially with that lighter fuel load. We get towards the end of that fuel run and that back end gets even more light, these trucks are going to be sliding all over the place.
Yeah, this is one of those racetracks where definitely if you just stay on the track and don't spin yourself out, then you're almost guaranteed to be in the top half of the field here, because we've been watching practice. It has been insane how many drivers have been spinning out. But let's talk about the points that are going on right now. I mean, taking a look at these 16 drivers that are in the playoffs right now, and really, really interesting what we're seeing on the left side of this board.
Yeah, you're seeing a lot of checkered flags on the left side of that board. Every single winner this season is sitting inside the top 8 as we go into the middle portion of this opening round of the playoff. And that's not, a win and in situation. That's not winners automatically advance. It's just how it's worked out. These 8 have absolutely just been dominant this season. And it's not just in the wins, but they also have all the top 5s, all the top 10s compared to the rest of the field. They have just been so consistently up front. And it has shown in how they're kind of separating themselves here early on, but still not a lot of fresh air there for guys like, really, I would say from Blair Holloman on back. They're still going to have to do quite a bit of work here in these next 2 races.
Oh, absolutely, and especially with it being a road course. There are some guys on this list that are really good at road courses, and there are some that will openly admit that they are no good at road courses at all. And so we're going to see all of that here tonight. But taking a look at the matchups from last week for the team standings, because, man, we've got a contest going on there too.
Yeah, you think that it's tight on the individual side, and it is the closest points race of any of the leagues after that opening race of this round on the individual side. Tightest race ever on the team side as well as in the truck series, even though the results from last week might not show that, and how we're seeing a bit of a gap. On the standing side, it is everybody stacked up on top of each other.
Yeah, taking a look at those standings, and you will see nobody has officially locked themselves into a top 4 playoff spot for the teams. There's a couple teams tonight that can do that. JW Racing, Phoenix Virtual Racing, they both need a win here tonight in order to get in. Phoenix Virtual Racing needs a win and either a threat level midnight loss or a Rat Pack Racing loss to get into that top 4. But man, I know in the Cup Series we've already figured out all 4 of those and who's racing the championship and all that stuff 3 weeks away from now. But Truck Series, it's all over the board.
Yeah, and it shows how crazy that the field is spread out amongst everybody on these teams, and you're looking at the point side of it too. Even just looking at that far right column, 1 all the way down to 6, separated by about 150-ish points. Not a lot separating them. That's only about 10 points a race that we've had thus far, separating the highest scoring team with Phoenix Virtual Racing and the lowest scoring team out of that group of 6, Jonathan Byer Racing. Just super close every single week.
Yeah, and so the matchups this week are incredibly important. Rat Pack Racing versus JBR there in that 3rd row. So Rat Pack can't be eliminated or lock themselves in, but they can certainly set themselves up to lock themselves in next week. Jonathan Byer, they're going to be eliminated with a loss and with wins by Phoenix Virtual Racing, Zuyos Racing, Threat Level Midnight, which I mean, who knows how that's going to shake out, but the big important ones, JW Racing, if they beat Threat Level Midnight, then they are in the top 4. And Phoenix Virtual Racing, if they beat Tank Racing, they are basically in the top 4.
Yeah, and it's that kind of time of year in any sport. You start thinking about magic numbers. Those magic numbers really down to 1.5, kind of basically for JW and PBR to clinch themselves into that top 4. But the big thing that you want to clinch into is in that top 2. Still a lot of work left for those teams to try to do that.
Yeah, tons and tons of racing here to do, and we still have a little bit of qualifying going on out there. There's going to be a lot of guys starting in the back of the pack because they don't want to ruin anybody else's races out here. So there are quite a few that are not qualifying, but taking a look at that season-long payout over on the right side, $500 for first place for the season-long champion.
Yeah, and that's what everybody's racing for right now. When we know that field of 16, half of them in that playoff race are going to be getting that season-long payout of some type, as we get that second place getting 300, 180, 120, and 80 for the rest of the championship 5, 60, 40, 20 for 6th, 7th, and 8th at the end of the season once we get to Las Vegas.
Yeah, just taking a quick look back at the point standings one more time. So one interesting note, Landon Cardulo, playoff lucky dog. He got into the playoffs last week by being the best racer that week that wasn't already in the playoffs. So now he is in the playoffs, and he's only 6 points out of that cut.
Yeah, and that's a huge jump, and we've seen that now in a couple sides with the Xfinity side and the Cup side. Race winner, the playoff lucky dog winner, jumping above that cut line immediately after that first race. Cardulo almost doing the same. So those playoff lucky dogs, they get all the momentum in there after a great start in those races that you need to have to be able to make it, and then that momentum can keep carrying through. We might see all 3 playoff lucky dogs advance with the way it's looking.
Well, taking a look out there at the field that is already gridding up as we speak, I'm shocked and amazed to tell you that Sean Jensick is on the pole.
Yeah, there's some things that are just kind of a given here. And on the road courses this season, Sean Jensick has been the guy, and he's got that pole by nearly 1 full second over Matt Greathouse, who honestly, the 129.3 is a very solid lap around here anyway. He'll be starting in position number 2. Row 2, Trevor Williams in the 46 JW Racing truck. Ben Park, the number 8 for Tank Racing, and in row 3, Brad Herman in the Zuyost Racing 85, and Lucas Lyons in the 94.
Yeah, then you got Blair Holloman in the 10 truck in 7th for Zuyo's Racing. Greg Olenek for Phoenix Virtual Racing didn't make the playoffs, but man, he wants to make a splash here in the postseason anyway. Greg Olenek is in 8th there. Michael Madden for Rat Pack Racing in 9th. Landon Cardulo, there's a playoff lucky dog himself, in 10th. Lane Doyle for JW Racing in 11th, and Andrew Harris for Phoenix Virtual Racing will start 12th. We do have 30 trucks out there in the field, so we will see how all of that works out. Kind of a small field for the truck series, but like I said, a lot of people don't really like this road racing.
Yeah, you throw in a road course, you throw in the playoffs and the lucky dog already being determined, things like that. Kind of makes it where it thins out, but still 30 trucks on a road course, especially one this technical. That's a pretty solid number to be seen. You don't see that in a lot of leagues at some oval races, let alone at a road course at this point in the season.
All right, well, Brandon, I'm going to let you cheat just a little bit here. I'm going to give you the first pick here tonight, and I have a funny feeling I know where you're going.
Well, you know what? I'm not going to take the low-hanging fruit. I'm not going to go with Sean Jensick in there. I want to go a little bit further back because we're getting pretty close here. I'm going to say a guy that's on a mission tonight, solid road racer this season. I'll say Lane Doyle. Keep an eye on him tonight.
Very nice, very nice. You know what? I'm going to stay away from Sean Jensick as well. I'm going to take Trevor Williams there in the 46 and 3rd place there. I think he might have something, and maybe Sean might run into some people, but first corner coming right out of the gate. Let's see if everybody can make it through here safely. And looks like they do, but this one, the keyhole, this is a very, very, very tough turn.
Yeah, this is where it really starts to kind of build up on these guys. You get a very narrow hairpin type turn there. Not as bad as maybe like a Montreal or anything like that, but it's still a tight turn, setting you up for the longest straightaway on the track. Has that little kink there, which is basically turn number 3. But aside from that, all downhill and a long, long way down to turn 4.
We'll take a look at Matthew Greathouse trying to track down Sean Jensick already, and we said it before the race started, Sean Jensick was about a second faster in that qualifying lap, and he has already built up a 1 second lead over Matthew Greathouse.
Yeah, he has done that as they work their way through the S's and now head down to Thunder Valley for the first time here in this one. All that's left after this get turn 10, turn 11, that little carousel, and then you're going to be right back onto that start-finish straight. So it's not a long lap around here. You're only looking at about a minute 28, 2.25 mile racetrack, and this race is going to go by pretty fast.
Yeah, and we're going to go on board here really quick and see what we can see from Sean Jensick's point of view, and that's actually a really terrible view. Sorry about that. So let's do that.
What we can see there is working the way through turn number 1. You got that little elevated curb there. Got to be careful of that. That's really going to narrow it down. That's also kind of working on separating everybody that's exiting pit road from the racetrack. This is the keyhole, and this is a very, very tricky turn. It looks simple, but it really wants to bait you into going a little bit faster than you really should be going on the exit. You also get really light because that's the highest point of the racetrack. Real light because you start coming downhill once you exit there. Now we're going down to turn 4. This is the start where it's really technical around here. Through 4, you're going to have this sweeping left as you head your way into the S's. All of this thus far up until that turn 5 right there, all downhill from the keyhole. And now it just starts kind of rolling. You're going up and down a very hilly section of the racetrack here, as you can obviously see. And it's a lot of blind entries into these turns. The other thing it does too is once you get up into these hills and kind of crest over it, you really start getting that truck light, and it really wants to kind of throw you sideways and get you real loose out there. As now we got Jensick working through turn number 11. He's going to hit the carousel. This is the next to last turn on this racetrack. Really a great racetrack out here in Ohio, and they've done a great job. Hosted about a decade worth of NASCAR races at this point. Last year, the first time for the trucks. I think we saw some good racing there and may see that continue in the future in real life too.
Yeah, really a fun track to drive. So if we have any iRacers out there that have not driven this track before, get out there and try it out. It is actually a lot of fun. And really there's a lot of moments here, especially when you come out of the keyhole and you can really get that truck up to speed, and all of a sudden you have to make almost a 90-degree turn to the right, and so you really have to learn where your brake points are. It's one of those tracks where we really truly learn who the drivers are here and not just the people that can mash the pedal.
Yeah, and honestly, I really like to think of this, and I kind of compare it a little bit to a Road Atlanta, where it's that's a big time blink out there for Jensick, but back on track, so that'll work out. Hopefully that is the end of that. But I kind of compare it to Road Atlanta a bit in the way that I consider this a confidence road course. It's technical, it does have some rhythm to it, yes, but it's all about in how you approach it. It reminds me a lot of the first couple sectors of Road Atlanta, where you have a lot of blind turns, a lot of hilliness to it that can really kick a vehicle around on you. It's all about how you approach that and how confident you are going through those technical sections, through those kind of blind turns there. Very similar here, and I really think that's going to be the story of this race. You've got to stay in it mentally for all 33 laps.
Yeah, and then the pit road here is not easy either, because you're coming off that carousel. You have to take a 90-degree right-hand turn, slow it down, and then take a 90-degree left-hand turn into the pits. So I think we might see some damage there as well.
Yeah, there's very possible on that, and you know, it's a little bit different than what we saw in real life, where they kind of had the alternate setup as well with a secondary pit wall here, because it's sim racing. There's a little bit more trucks than there are pit stalls, so there's going to be a little bit of blending as well. Something for the last couple of qualifiers that they'll have to think about, that they're going to be sharing a pit stall virtually. It does work out. It's just something to keep an eye on. But yeah, this is a very difficult pit road in, very difficult pit road out as well, because that curb is sitting right there to the outside of you when you're on that exit road.
Oh, that curb and I go back a long, long way, and it has messed me up on more than one occasion at this course. So just getting out of the pits when you're practicing this track is difficult.
And honestly, that's something I'm wondering if people really spend a lot of time practicing on this, because you think about it, it's only going to be one pit stop. It's obviously going to be under green flag conditions, as we don't have any full course yellows. That'll be playing out over the course of this race. Oh, big slide there for Castellanos. He's going to hang on to it. That's going to cost him a little time, but I think Doyle also kind of sliding up there, maybe getting out of line, checking himself up, making sure he didn't get into Castellanos if he continued to spin that thing around. So a little bit of a stack up here in the mid-pack. They're all racing for about the 11th position. So everybody all backed up there, really from 6th on back from Lucas Lyons. Just a big line. Oh, heavy hit for Raul Meza.
Yeah, he's had a couple of bad incidents already tonight. So tough track for Raul there, but he'll get it down to pit road and see what he can get done with that truck.
And that's going to be one of those things. I always kind of say, aside from maybe a couple people, and Jensic may be one of those. We'll have to see how it plays out tonight, but typically he is. And Adrian Schumacher, Joshua Balliet, guys like that, you can kind of say they might not make a mistake, but for the most part, 95-98% of the field is going to make at least at one point one mistake. And it might not be an off track, it might not be a spin or anything like that, but it's just going to be a simple mistake on the racetrack. How you respond to that mistake is what's going to dictate how you run in this race, and that means mentally, physically on the racetrack, all of that. That's going to be a big determining factor in how this one goes.
Decent battle going on for third place here. This is Brad Herman trying to track down Trevor Williams there in third, and Brad started off in the 5th position. He's up to 4th, and now he's trying to get onto that podium.
And amazingly enough, these two were actually racing each other quite a bit in practice. They kind of came out around each other and spent a couple laps racing side by side and really kind of getting aggressive. So this is kind of playing out in the race in a nice way where they can really kind of go against each other. They know what their tendencies are, and it looks like Trevor actually just going to give him the spot. Still very early on here, and I think he kind of knew that 85 was a little bit wanting to go a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, last night in the race last night at Red Bull Ring, one of the tricks of the trade was to not take tires because there wasn't a lot of high-speed turning going on. Here there is high-speed turning, so you are going to scrub your tires here, and it may make a very big difference, actually. So I would expect that when people do come down into pit road that they will take 4 tires and fuel.
Yeah, that's one of the tricks that I was a little quiet about because I was hoping nobody else really caught on to that trick, and it seemed like everybody did in the race last night about not taking those tires the whole way. But yeah, I would imagine here, especially with the amount of fuel that they're going to be taking on this one pit stop as opposed to last night where it's kind of breaking that race into thirds for a lot of people. Oh, we got Jeffrey Vickery off track trying to get that thing gathered back up and rejoin, and he'll be all right there. No traffic coming in. But yeah, I think just the style of the race last night, the track, the way that those cars drive, and also just how quick those pit stops were coming because it was a 2-stop race. I think that changed the element here. Here, I think you're going to see a longer pit stop. I think you're going to see those tires come into play.
And just like that, we are basically 20% through this race. Not going to be a long race here tonight because we figured that there are enough turns out there that will decide whether you're good or not here.
Well, it's also a short race in real life, too, when the trucks come out here. They only ran about 70 laps, so we're going about half the distance of the actual truck series here tonight. And just a quick race, and I think that's a good test. Kind of feels a lot like what you would see in the official races in iRacing, too. Just kind of one of those sprint races that you just got to go right out of the gate. There's going to be some strategy, but not as much as you would see in one of the longer road course races like we saw at Watkins Glen or at the Roval earlier this season.
You had a little bit of a decent battle brewing there between Tyler Markle and Lane Doyle, but it looks like Tyler's going to start to pull away a little bit. But yeah, we've had a few off tracks here back towards the back, and you can see up there on the track map that it is spreading out very, very quickly. The white numbers, or I'm sorry, the white dots with the black numbers in it, those are your playoff drivers that are out there on the track. And then over on the left side of your screen, all those that are in green, those are your playoff drivers. So you can kind of keep track of how the playoff drivers are doing. You can see that Greg Olenek is the first non-playoff driver in the top 10 in 7th place.
He'll be sitting in 7th. The only other non-playoff driver in the top 10 going to be Andrew Harris, who's sitting in 10th, and Olenek going around the outside through that turn to make that spot as they go in towards the carousel, turn number 12, and he's going to make that stick as he works his way around Lucas Lyons, who Lucas, one of those pressure drivers right now, sitting 17 points behind that cut line. But speaking of pressure, you mentioned those white dots that are playoff drivers. The last one of those sitting in 21st is our bubble driver entering this race, and that's Jose Ruiz, just 1 point above the cut line, and he's going to be the only one sitting outside the top 20 here right now out of the playoff drivers.
Yeah, and so he's going to have to either keep it really, really clean and let others wreck around him, or just try to get through this race so he can get to the next one and possibly make a run at it next week. But up front, the big concern here is that Sean Jensick is starting to catch the back of the field very quickly, and the back of the field has been struggling a lot on this track. That might be dangerous for Sean.
Yeah, and typically you are going to see the drivers, especially when it's the leader. We got the 9 truck turned around there, Doc Holliday. So he's going to get that loop back around, and that's not too far. That's a couple turns ahead of where Sean Jensick is. As you also see Jeffrey Vickery go to the inside, and Holiday just going to pull that one down on the pit road here. It's going to be a little early actually to make it the rest of the way, so he might have to come down one more time here in this race. But typically especially for the leader lap trucks on these road courses, because there are going to be no lucky dogs with no cautions, they're very respectful about getting out of the way of the leader. I think you actually have a little bit more trouble when you're sitting like 5th, 6th, 7th back in the running order, just because the lap trucks are kind of like, all right, I'm over it, I'm getting back into my groove now. But hopefully for Jensick, just kind of stays clean out there in front of him.
Dean Gagliano had a little bit of an issue there, so he gets back on the track and keeps it moving forward. But yeah, we're going to keep an eye on Sean Jensick, and as he's catching that 27th place car, that's Jeffrey Vickery that's in 27th. So that should be coming up here relatively soon. And every single turn here, especially as they're about to go into the S's, that's going to be tough for Sean. He may want to drive very defensively here.
Yeah, and honestly, when you have an 8-second lead, you can kind of take it a little bit more cautiously in how you approach this. Now, you don't want to give up that entire lead, but you also just kind of want to sit there and say, I don't have to be as aggressive making my way around, and typically everybody's going to have a pretty good mind on just getting out of the way of the race leader especially. But like you pointed out, there's going to be some points on this racetrack that you're just not able to do so, and that's where patience is going to come into play here for Jensick.
Well, a lot of these guys, when they practice these road courses, they practice with the driving line on, so it kind of tells them where you're supposed to be on the track at all times. And the problem with practicing that way is you don't know how to drive on the rest of the track. So you don't know how to drive if that truck is forcing you to the outside. You don't know what that truck's going to do. And so sometimes that can be a little bit sketchy, where the leader says, hey, I'm gonna come to your inside here. Well, that inside line might be the preferred line, and you don't know any other way to drive.
Yeah, and it's funny because we talk about that. Dean Gagliano turned around, and it's going to be an awkward rejoin. He did a good job catching up on that one, using that relative and making sure he was clear there. But we talk about it a lot on ovals that most of the time the drivers that do the best are the ones that practice the alternate lines and get comfortable with being out of the groove, whether it's an inside line at most tracks or if it's like a Kansas running the high line. But here on the road courses, I think people just get so focused on, I gotta be able to figure out my way around this racetrack, that maybe you don't take as much time to work on those alternate lines, and it just kind of messes with your, even just something as alternate break points to try to break a little bit early and get more of a launch on the exit, things like that. So to me, it's sure, that driving line, it's great maybe for the first couple laps, but I would turn that off as quickly as possible once you're working towards the race, just to make sure that you actually know what you're going to feel like out there, and because you're not going to have that once we get to these races.
Yeah, just an update. So Ben Park was in 5th place, and his PC just crashed. And so he got out of the race, basically. So he is back in 28th position. We'll see if he's going to be able to rejoin at all. But yeah, his PC just took a dump, and that means that one of our playoff drivers.
Trouble in seconds.
Woo!
Matt Greathouse turned around, and I saw a little bit of contact with Brad Herman. Not sure if that was follow through or if that was cause. I came to my second screen a little late, but here we go.
Let's find out what happened here. Jeffrey Vickery in the white and blue truck. And Jensick, and it looks like Brad Herman was trying to get a 2-for-1 there.
Yeah, 3 wide ain't going to work in that turn.
Take a look one more time here and try to get a different angle. And yeah, it's Brad Herman just being a little aggressive.
little aggressive, but that was kind of a little awkward pace going into that turn. I'm not sure if Greathouse maybe overbroke a little bit, catching up to Vickery, maybe just kind of got out of line or got loose or a little wheel hop even. Not too sure what happened there, but it seemed like he checked up a little bit more, and I think that's why we saw Herman kind of dive deep into that turn. Might not even been so much he dove deep, but Greathouse might have just backed up a little bit more than anticipated. But either way, that was not going to fit into turn one.
That was one of those awkward moments that we've talked about that is just a little bit odd here on this track, especially with all the twists and turns. But Ben Park has rejoined the race. He is in 28th place, and he is 1.8 laps down. So he has got a lot of work to do to catch up to anybody to gain as many points as he can so he can stay in the hunt.
And he's another one of those drivers that's sitting right around that cut line. I mean, we've seen Jose Ruiz with a slow start in 20th. He's sitting 1 point above the cut line. Ben Park 1 point below the cut line, now sitting in 28th and a lap down. So both those guys surrounding that line just in real trouble right now. So they're trying to figure this out. And we got side-by-side racing here. Blair Holloman and Greg Olenek. This will be for the 5th position. They're not taking it too easy on each other, still side-by-side as they work their way through.
And it looks like, oh, wow, I mean, just coming down this really, really tough stretch after the keyhole, bearing down, and who's going to outbreak the other? It's going to be Blair Holloman.
Now, is there going to be a little bit of a counter? No, not just yet. Olenek going to get a little bit better of a run off of 5, and he almost gave it too much.
Little wide. Travis Burton in the gorgeous LSU truck. I absolutely love that paint scheme. But he is taking a ride through the grass a little bit there, but trying to find you some more good racing here. Let's go back up to Lane Doyle and Jose Castellanos, who have been duking it out back and forth for a while now.
This is another one that's big for the point standings. Castellanos coming into this in 9th, 4 points clear. Doyle in 13th, 9 points back. And they're both putting together some solid... Castellanos! That had all the looks of just catching the grass and getting shot down the racetrack, and that's some pretty heavy damage to the left side of that truck.
Whew. Maybe we need to stop zooming in on people.
Oh, more trouble. Got Lucas Lyons off track now.
Oh, wow. And this is getting to that point that you were talking about where the trucks are getting lighter and lighter, and so it's just harder and harder to control.
Yeah, and this is going to be an awkward point in the race, too, because all these guys that are going to be struggling right now will be sitting there saying, hey, I need to get some tires on this thing, or I need to come in and fill this thing back up with fuel. But the problem is they can make it, but how loose it is right now, it's going to be even more loose if they do it now, because it's just going to get lighter and lighter on the back end of this race, because we're 12 laps in, 21 to go. That fuel window is open, and Blair Holloman around. He was in the top 5 not long ago.
I mean, some of our leaders are really, really struggling. One that's not, obviously, is Sean Jensick. I mean, has been basically perfect throughout this entire race. But Landon Cardulo has had a couple of off tracks just in the last lap. Some of these really, really good, strong drivers really struggling here in Ohio.
Well, and I tell you what, I don't think it's all just solo incidents either. I'm hearing that radio kind of light up more and more over these past couple laps, and I think that part of it is this is a difficult racetrack to make passes on because I'm not going to say it's narrow, but it's just the flow of the racetrack. We got one around. Lane Doyle turned around now.
So another top 10 driver.
My goodness, we talked about it early on. This is going to be a race of just finding your balance and having that, just that confidence of staying on the racetrack and running clean is going to get you a good result. And I think we've seen more than half of the playoff drivers have an issue in this race.
So just to recap where we're at right now, Sean Jensick, 15 seconds ahead of everybody right now. Brad Herman in 2nd place. He is a couple seconds ahead of 3rd place Trevor Williams. And then Matthew Greathouse will slot in 4th place after that. I don't know how the admins would call that if it was a caution, but after the wreck, that happened. And then Greg Olenek, non-playoff driver, in 5th place. So that's your top 5 right now. But take a look at Michael Madden. He started off in 9th. He's up in 6th. And so he is moving up the course, and he's one of those that was kind of towards the bottom of the... he was about 6th place coming into this, wasn't he?
In the points in sixth place, yes, and he's one of those drivers. You talk about ones that say that they don't really like the road courses, and he kind of said so much a couple of weeks ago when we interviewed him after his win. And we got Connor Cunningham around. That threw me off with a number. I'm used to him being 63. And Travis Burton around again. But yeah, for Michael Madden, he always says not a big fan of the road courses and all that, but his style just works at him. He's smooth, he's consistent out there, and it's working here tonight.
And just, issues everywhere. My black box over here that kind of tells where people are is just lighting up like crazy. Ben Park wrecking out on the track there. Lane Doyle's coming into the pits. Dean Gagliano coming into the pits right now. Just action absolutely everywhere on the track, and not always the good guy.
Yeah, and here's two things. One, on these pit stops, this could be scheduled for these guys. Well, maybe not for Dean Gagliano. I think he overshot his pit, perhaps.
Oh, he was likely one of those drivers that was outside of the start. I believe there's 28 pits.
Yeah, so he was 29th.
Yeah, and so he will have a shared pit, and he might not know where that pit is. I wish iRacing would do a little better job of letting you know that. But
it will do, but you got to have the settings for it, and I'm not too sure if he knew that he was going to have one of those. If you set up the spotter the right way, you can kind of get that heads up of like 5 to pit, 10 to pit, things like that. But you got to have all that in mind, and if it catches you off guard, and maybe you kind of grid up, and then like, oh no, I forgot to do that. I can catch you off guard there, but tough thing, and it will try to do as much as it can, but it's not a perfect system, that's for sure. But just tough break there. The other thing I wanted to point out, by the way, is we're talking about everything that's going on the racetrack. That incident count, that might be something to keep in mind here tonight, with 25X being a disqualification.
Yeah, last night when we were at Red Bull Ring, I didn't think that anybody would get disqualified there, because it was kind of, I'm not going to say an easy course, but there aren't a lot of high-speed turns, so there's not a ton of places that you can really mess it up that bad. But we had a couple disqualifications last night, so I can only imagine what it's going to be like tonight.
Yeah, last night it's a pretty narrow racetrack, and there's a very tight off-track limits out there. I know I got caught by a couple of them on time penalties, even though it didn't feel like I went that far away. But it's just a very tight track. Reminds me of COTA and the way iRacing kind of navigates the off tracks there. Here, you do get a little bit of leeway in some of these turns where there's a little bit of runoff, but there's really none of them that have that kind of runoff in it. So you really got to keep it on racetrack. And all these problems, off track 1X, losing control 2X, car contact 4X, we're seeing a lot of that happen here. So just staying out here, even if you fall a lap down, you might pick up a few spots just by guys dropping out of the race.
Yeah, and even with one off track per lap, and an off track can be just simply touching the grass. And so if you have one of those per lap, you'll be disqualified with 8 laps to go here tonight. So you really, really have to learn this track, and it would be an interesting study just to go through and get a show of hands of how many of you actually practiced this track before you got here tonight.
I would hope everybody, but we know that that's not always the case, as we do have some of our leaders making their way in. Saw Michael Madden. He's going to be pitting in. Austin Purnell going to be another one of them. This is right around that halfway point, so this is kind of that, all right, we're probably going to be seeing a lot of guys come in around this point. The only play was going to be if you were stuck in traffic, maybe kind of undercut it a bit to try to get out of that traffic a little bit. I tried that last night. Didn't quite work because you still wind up behind some people when you get out of the pits, and it's still a little bit difficult to make some passes. So there's a bunch of ways you can go about it, but I think this is about that time we're going to see the meat of the field come down.
Sean Jensik has not pitted yet. 16.7 second lead. Absolute dominance right now on the racetrack, and he might do well just to stay out as long as he can, just to have those freshest tires. And so I don't see anything stopping him tonight. I know neither of us wanted to pick the low-hanging fruit there, but the one race at a road course that he did not win this season, he didn't show up for it.
Yeah, so he got the win at the Roval. Brad Herman did win at Watkins Glen, and you look at the Oh! That's a little bit of a Code Brown moment there if you're Sean Jensick, but yeah, that worked out all right. But yeah, I mean, I was looking at where our playoff drivers are when it comes to road courses, and Jensick, he does have the one start, and that was for a first place finish. Trevor Williams also won road course to the fourth, but then look at who's in second. Brad Herman, his average over both of them 2.5. So we got some guys that can go on these road courses, that is for sure, and they're stepping up here in a big way.
So Brad Herman only 3.5 second lead over Trevor Williams. I'd say only a 3.5 second lead. That's really not much on the road course. And so we might be seeing a battle brewing there very, very shortly. But a lot of these guys get into the pits for their first pit stop, probably their only pit stop. We see Rob Yost actually getting out of the pits here. So first time we've talked about him tonight.
Yeah, and one of the drivers that's below that cut line, 11 points out, and see if he can kind of get some rhythm going here. Typically not one of the stronger road course guys out there, averaging a 19th on them this season, but sitting right now in 16th, and that's even after the pit stop. That there's still a few guys that have yet to pit out there, so there might be a few more spots. Might be looking at top 13, top 14 finish for Rob.
Trying to find you a little bit of decent racing here. Probably the best race right now is still Jose Castellanos and Lane Doyle. I mean, these guys, they just will not leave each other alone.
No, they've been next to each other all race long, it seems, and here they go yet again as they just stay stuck together. Even with Jose having that off track and getting some pretty good damage there, we saw Lane spin it as well, so they've each had their issues. I was worried about the handling on that 5 truck, if there was any suspension damage, but seems to be handling just fine, or at least good enough, and they're right back to each other.
As we get the drone cam going here tonight, you can see the separation there, but again, on the track, that is just not a lot of separation. One bad break, one good corner for Jose Castellanos, and that is going to change positions very quickly.
And you can kind of see how that balance works. He picked up a lot of speed in some of those points going through the carousel in turn 13, and then Doyle would just kind of pull back away, and they wound up pretty level. It's just all about how you want to approach this track and just getting around there. We've got our race leader coming down pit road, and he could probably get out, go to the bathroom right now, and still wind up with a bit of a heater at least close to it.
Go grab some nachos, whatever.
Pit crew's eating ice cream.
And so, I mean, this is how bad it is. Brad Herman is just now passing him.
Yeah, and Brad still has to make that pit stop, and we're getting pretty close to that. You can go about 23 laps. He's going to have to come in the next couple here, but does he? Did not actually lead that last lap, so the pit stall was past the start-finish line for Jensick. So Brad Herman, he's only going to be about 3 seconds ahead of Williams, 12 seconds ahead of Jensick, so Brad might want to think about staying out 2 more laps, come in not this time but next time by, just to pick up that bonus point for a lap led.
And again, all the just gaggle of cars everywhere, and you can see that the number one cursor up there at the very top. I mean, right in the middle of all of these lap trucks, and so you just never know what's going to happen there. Now Sean Jensick will have to fight his way back through it unless Brad Herman and Trevor Williams both pit on this lap.
Yeah, this is going to be an interesting point here if you're Brad Herman and Trevor Williams about, do you want to pit now or do you want to try to pick up that bonus point, which will still carry a good bit of weight here as these playoffs continue. It's going to be a tough call because you are kind of stuck in that vortex with all those lap trucks. So you're going to be losing time, but you do have that little carrot that's dangling in front of you, and Brad Herman is going to stay out this time. He is going to pick up that lap lead. And Trevor Williams going to come down pit road, and he's going to try to pull off a little bit of an undercut, probably just 1 lap on Williams.
Yeah, I think if Herman had gone in, I'm pretty sure Trevor would have stayed out just to get that bonus point. But I think they're really, really low on fuel, so I'm not sure that Trevor could have made it around an extra time if I don't think that would have worked.
Yeah.
But anyway.
No, With the pace lap too, that I don't think they would have had that. That's really stretching it a little bit too thin.
Well, Brad Herman leads this thing over Sean Jensick, which again, Brad has not pitted yet. Sean Jensick has, and Sean has just completely dominated this field tonight. So Bo Tiffany jumping into the pits for his service. And really, since all those pit stops have happened, there hasn't been as much damage on the track. So I think you're right about the weight of these trucks helping out a whole lot.
Well, it's twofold. I think part of it is that. Part of it, as we see Connor Cunningham spun right as we talk about that. But I think it's I would say even threefold. It's one, it's getting more fuel in the trucks and some fresh tires on it, and that's going to give you a little bit more grip, a little bit more confidence around there. Two, it's just the amount of lap times, the seat time that you're getting on the racetrack now. You are finding that rhythm. And also, I think we're seeing a little bit, not right now, but we've seen a little bit more separation between some of the field after these pit stops too, and just the way that pit road's so difficult. I think there's a way that you can build up a lot of time on there or lose a lot of time on there. So I think we're seeing a little bit more separation in the field as well.
I'm interested, and I'm going to actually pull up and see what the last pit lane time was, not the pit stall time, because iRacing does pretty good about keeping those fairly even, but pit lane time is the most important because it's the amount of time it takes for you to get all the way through pit lane with your stop. And actually, Sean Jensick was one of the slowest by about a second and a half. So he didn't have to really push it. But Brad Herman had a 37.72. Sean Jensick had a 39.35. And so a second and a half is what Brad Herman technically gained from that pit stop. But he's still down by 22 seconds.
And speaking of gains and losses, by second screen, I want to give a shout out here to Lane Doyle, who had an off track, went through the grass, nearly spun it into Jose Castellanos as they're side by side. Somehow they both made it work and stayed off each other, but we're still getting some good racing, as we've seen all race long here between these two. But man, what a great save by Lane Doyle. And it's going to be one of these ones that it doesn't look as bad, but watch where he rejoins after this off track. So he's going through the grass. He's on ice skates right now, and
wow,
barely missing each other.
That could have been a whole lot worse. He didn't lose that much speed.
No, I don't know how they stayed so close out there. And I'll tell you what, the grass in iRacing, we talk about the physics and all that stuff. I would say that might be the one thing that might be a little bit lacking is the physics on grass when it comes to iRacing. It's basically like putting these cars on ice the second you touch it. And I don't know how he saved that thing. He kept it straight and kept it off Jose.
So another playoff driver we haven't said a word about all night is Kyle Speeds. Started off in 13th, up in 9th place now. So he is definitely moving through the field, but nobody is moving through the field as much as Tyler Markle, who started off in 21st position and has just methodically worked his way through this field up to 5th.
And you know what? He's one of the ones that took the gamble that I was talking about, too, about the undercut. He has been out there now for 13 laps on this set of tires since his pit stop, which was a pretty fast pit stop because he had to take less fuel. So he shaved off a couple of tenths of a second there. He's going to have the lightest back end of this truck, though, and you can see it right there with how loose this truck is. But he's going to pick up a lot of spots with that undercut because he got out of traffic early, and he was able to just run clean laps by himself while other people were stuck in a pack, and he's had a clean race, and that's going a long way as well. This is a great strategy and a great drive for Tyler.
Yeah, not one of our playoff drivers, but definitely one of those to really, really focus in on. I really think he could have been a playoff driver this season, just had a few bad finishes that weren't necessarily his fault, just something a little bit unique.
Yeah, and that's going to happen. I mean, you look at, it sounds like 16 drivers is a lot to take in, but I mean, you really think about, we talked about how we had 8 winners. They all are sitting in the top 8 right now. Okay, if you haven't won a race, that leaves 8 spots, and you've pretty much got to be on it for I would say 9 out of every 10 races to be in that position where you can make one of those final 8 spots out of that field. So it takes a lot, especially with how level that this field has been. If you have more than a couple of bad races, it really hurts your chances.
Well, Sean Jensick is still working his way through lap traffic. It looks like he's got, I'm not sure who that is in front of him.
It's Ben Park.
That's Ben Park, okay. Is that the, no, he's got the right number. For some reason I was seeing a 7. I was like, that's not Jeffrey Vickery. But Sean Jensick can get past him, and then right in front of him, he has another lap car. That would be Jose Ruiz, I believe.
And I tell you what, the good news for Sean right now is there is a lot of daylight now in front of him. You got the next lap truck is actually sitting in 19th. So Landon Cardulo going to be the next truck in front of him. He's already gone well past the keyhole. He's near the kink. Turn number 3 right now as Jensick hits the keyhole. So we're looking at about 5, 6, 7 seconds maybe of interval. So that's going to be a few laps until Jensick catches more lap traffic.
Yeah, the closest battle on the track right now, Andrew Harris and Austin Purnell, about 0.3 of a second apart from one another. And this is the battle for 11th place, so that's the closest one on the track. And everyone else is spaced out by more than a second from one another.
And it's kind of how these road course races go at the end of this. You don't see a whole lot of wow, nice save there from Harris, but you don't see a whole lot of tight side-by-side racing at this point in the race just because it's such a large degree of difficulty. There's so many things that can go wrong out there that everybody really does gap each other pretty well. So I think we're seeing battles like this. This is about what you see. You might have a couple of them. We still have Castellanos and Michael Larch now actually that are within reason of each other, but other than that, everybody kind of separating themselves pretty well.
Yeah, we haven't talked about Michael Larch at all tonight either. Up in 15th position, started off in 17th. So a solid, consistent drive for him. He is one of our playoff drivers, and he is in the 7th place coming into this thing.
Somebody hard into the wall. That's Connor Cunningham.
Again.
I just saw all that smoke and was like, oh, that doesn't look good. But yeah, rough night here for Connor. And it's just one of those things. Not everybody really comfortable on a road course, especially one like this one. It's just a whole lot to handle, and that's going to catch a few guys out there.
Yeah, Connor not the usual driver in that 17 truck, and so it's kind of tough to join this one cold turkey and get out here in mid-Ohio and try to put something together. So commend him for even being out here, but it is a tough track to figure out on your first try.
Yeah, absolutely. And going back to where we were just before with Michael Larch and sitting there in that 15th position, we haven't talked a lot about him. As we see Cunningham a little bit more trouble there. But for Michael Larch, this is a solid run on a road course for him. He's averaging a 21st this season in the first 2 road course races. This is the kind of run that he needed tonight, though. Just a solid 15th, keeping it on track, keeping that truck clean. He had an 18-point gap. He's going to get to that oval next week, which obviously is going to be a welcome sight for somebody that might not be as comfortable as a road course. But this is kind of doing that damage control that we talk about a lot in the playoffs. There's always going to be that one race that you're not really looking forward to. This is a solid job, doing better than the average heading into it, and that's all you can do at this kind of track.
Yeah, but if you really consider some of these drivers that are up front, Sean Jensick, Matthew Greathouse, Trevor Williams is kind of in this position. I mean, if you take a look and see what those standings look like coming in here, Greathouse and Jensick could potentially lock themselves into the next round of the playoffs with just this finish. So they won't even have to worry about next week. You can see Trevor Williams down there in 8th place, but with a solid finish here, if he comes in 3rd, he is going to vault himself up that leaderboard and put himself in a position where it's going to be really difficult to knock him out of the top 10.
Yeah, looking at it right now, I would say Greathouse, Jensick, Herman all probably, if they stay as they're running now, would lock themselves in. Spies might be in that position as well. Got to keep in mind it's 48 points needed to lock yourself in over the cut line, I should say. But for Trevor Williams, not so much going to be that he would lock himself in on points, but he would have so many trucks between he and the cut line that it would be really difficult to see any combination of results. You'd be looking at a perfect storm at that point to fall out of the playoffs when you get 4, 5, 6 trucks between you and that cut line.
Yeah, so all sorts of stuff that's going to happen with those standings after this race. So be on the lookout for that, as we'll post that in the Discord channels for the drivers, and then they will likely post that on their Facebook pages, their Twitch pages, all that fun stuff. So be on the lookout for those standings after this race.
Well, also, if you haven't followed, if you're not one of the drivers and you haven't followed on Instagram, Speed Racing Network on Instagram, we'll have it also there at the end of the race with those point standings as they are updated. So if you haven't joined or followed on Instagram, please do. I think it's pretty decent.
Definitely, and if you want to come back next week for the Bluegrass 135, we are on our way to Kentucky to finish off this first round of the playoffs. So a classic oval there to see who makes it into the second round.
And that's going to be an interesting one, too. We saw that race at Texas where you kind of have that asymmetrical, one end a little bit different than the other. Kentucky very similar in that aspect, but a very different type of racetrack at the same time. Going to be a big challenge for these guys to close out this round.
Sean Jensick is blinking quite a bit. I know that the admins out there are not going to really say too much about it because he's not around anybody right now. They don't want to disqualify him from the race if he's not just becoming a problem, but you can see that number 1 blinking, and so that's kind of not where he wants to be as he's heading into lap traffic.
Yeah, and not even so much that admins might have something to say, but as much as he's blinking, as he's approaching lap traffic right now pretty closely, Landon Cardulo not going to be too far in front of him. There's Jensick in the background, and you can see him still blinking. I'm not even worried about the admins, but how much he's blinking. I'm worried about him just disconnecting at this rate. That's getting pretty bad.
Yeah, and if he disconnects here, oh my gosh, what a shocking, horrible exit if that is the case.
I mean, you got to sit here and think, all right, 22-second gap. If he knows that he's blinking, and there are some telltale signs that you are, if he's kind of sitting in that spot of, all right, I know this is happening, all right, well, I'm just going to ride behind these lap trucks and just run at their pace and not really get in the way of them. Oh, wow, nice save there from Cardulo, getting pretty loose there out of the turn. But I think at this point it's all about managing that for 5 laps. 22-second gap, you can be 4 seconds off the pace that you're running right now and still be all right and not risk it. But I think if he starts battling these lap trucks, that's going to catch some attention big time.
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, I just don't want to be in that position at all to do that. I mean, hey, tell your friend or your roommate, your parents, whoever you're with, tell them to get off Netflix, man.
Yeah, that's I mean, I know Sean is in college, as best as I know.
And he's
so
gone.
Maybe it's,
did he just
oh
drop?
No, he's back on the pylon, but I still don't see him. I don't see him on my screen either.
Oh,
and there he is again.
Okay. Whoa, I thought he had just... Wow. I'm sure that our admin, Corey Saucer, is saying something to him right now. Oh, as he gets to the inside. Oh, I don't want that at all.
Oh, my goodness. 3 wide while blinking. And I don't know if that's Cardulo just getting loose or if that's him not knowing where he was and trying to figure out where he's going. This is getting a little wild.
He's gone.
Pylon still has him. Speaking of connection, just saw Andrew Harris drop due to connection issues.
That's insane. All right, well, so Brad Herman in second place as it sits. Something interesting with iRacing, and this has not happened to us this season, but if you blink out crossing the finish line, from my understanding, they will not register it that you crossed the finish line. And so imagine that on the last lap, he blinks out going across the finish line. I don't know if iRacing will register it.
Well, I'm not techie enough to know all that, but all I know is this is getting real dicey. And if I'm Brad Herman, just keep doing what you're doing. You might stumble yourself into a race win. Might not be the way that you want it, but it might be coming, actually, with how these connection issues are still going on for Jensic, as Trevor Williams about 8 seconds behind Herman, and suddenly this could be for the race win.
Yeah, I mean, I'm keeping an eye on that number one spot. It has not blinked here in a few minutes, or a few seconds at least. So, and now he's got nobody in front of him. So it might be okay for Sean Jensic, but Trevor Williams with a killer drive here. Started off third, still in third, and it looks like that is probably where he's going to end up finishing, unless something bad happens between Brad Herman or Matthew Greathouse.
Yeah, honestly, most everybody just kind of sitting where they are, with the exception being Tyler Markle and that 16-point position jump. Aside from that, I see an 8-position gain, and nobody else more than a handful. That 8 position for Austin Purnell, who started in 18th, and he's now up into 10th. And just to kind of check back in on the connection thing, I did just hear Sean jump in on the radio, just kind of saying, hey, sorry, because people were kind of saying things, Landon Cardulo and Bo Tiffany that he was racing around were kind of saying, hey, you're blinking a whole lot. The way that he sounded, I think he resolved it on his end about what was going on. That might be why we haven't seen him blink as much lately, and there's some things you can do, but man, to do that while you're leading a race at a track like this, that's a whole lot to be handling.
Yeah, that's we have not seen him blink all lap, so that is good. So 2 laps to go here in Mid-Ohio, and we will see how much Sean Jensic beats everybody by is kind of what it's come down to. Right now it's 22 and a half seconds.
And it's very similar to the Roval, which he won by 22 and a half seconds. So kind of going 2 for 2 in these dominant road course performances here. Oh, hello, right onto the grass. And thankfully for him, if he did lose control, it's a 22-second lead, and there's not really any wall that was around there anytime soon. But man, that was a close call there, coming to the white flag here soon.
It was, but at this point, I mean, he could slide off the track, run into the tires, get out, change his tires, get back, fix the sheet metal, get back on the track, and he'd still be in the lead. So I'm pretty sure he's going to be okay there, unless he's just got a terrible victory. But yeah, so that's going well for him. Blair Holloman putting some pressure on Michael Madden here for 7th place.
And this one, for Holloman and Madden, they're 5th and 6th in the point standings. Michael just going to kind of give them that spot, it looks like, as they work their way through the keyhole. Not too sure if maybe it was just a good braking line there on the outside, getting a little bit deeper for Holloman, but had all the looks of Madden just saying, all right, your spot. We're both in a solid position. Don't really want to risk losing a lot more here on the final couple laps.
Yeah, Michael Madden is a very smart point driver. Yes, he enjoys winning, obviously, but he is very, very smart when it comes to, I know exactly what I need to get into the next round. And the next round, all the points even out. All the points go completely even from the start. So all you have to do is be in the top 10. And so that's what Michael Madden is doing right now. He doesn't care if he comes in first in this round. He doesn't need it. He just needs to get into the top 10.
And by the way, while we got the camera on Holloman there for a second too, big recovery drive for Blair. He's only had 2 top 10s in the last 7 races. He had 4 in the first 7. So this is a nice little rebound here for that 10 truck of Blair Holloman, sitting inside 7th position. Nice solid run. That's exactly what he needs to be doing right now.
Well, heading back up with Sean Jensic, I'd be surprised if he tries to take on any of these trucks right now. This is the white flag lap. So it'd be to his best benefit just to kind of steer clear of everybody.
I don't think he's really going to have much of a choice, though, because he's got so much more pace. I think he's trying to be patient. Oh, there's a little blinking again. But, yeah, we only got a couple turns left. He's coming through Thunder Valley towards turn 11, and then the carousel. Still making passes on these lap trucks, though, giving it all he's got all the way through the line. And honestly, some of the lap trucks might be thinking, all right, that's cool. We just got one lap fewer that we got to run.
And Sean Jensic will bring it home the last turn and cross the start-finish line, and he will win the Buckeye 85 here at Mid-Ohio.
And 23-second win over Brad Herman. Just a cruisy drive there for Sean Jensick as Herman now working his way through the carousel. This is a good 23 seconds back.
So he will take second place. Trevor Williams working his way through the carousel as well, taking that last little left-hand turn and crossing the start-finish line for his podium finish here tonight.
Tell you what, after all that racing on a track this treacherous, really that top three had a nice and calm night. We saw that one little moment for Herman. We saw the connection issues for Jensick, but aside from that, not a whole lot going on there. Matthew Greathouse, points leader coming in, 4th place on the night, so a solid run. The top three in the point standings, all inside the top 4 in the race.
Oh, Landon Cardulo. I'm not sure he even made it to the checker.
I could not see where he was quick enough, so I'm not too sure.
Well, once those results are done, we will get those up on your screen here. But a lot of these trucks are finishing up still, so once they get across the line, then we will call this race official. But Sean Jensick with just an incredible win. 22.879 seconds ahead of Brad Herman. So Sean Jensick will take the win, and he will take over the lead in the playoffs, and he will lock himself into the next round. So that is extremely important to him. Brad Herman, he will take second place there. Pretty sure he is going to be locked in as well. Trevor Williams will take third place. Not locked in yet, but definitely not sitting in a bad position. But Matthew Greathouse probably locking himself into the playoffs as well. So I think we've got 3 guys that have locked themselves in out of the top 4 drivers here.
Very likely. And our first non-playoff driver going to be in 5th place. That'll be Tyler Markle with a very strong run, plus 16 on the night. Easily the biggest charger through the field in this race. Greg Olenek also out of the playoffs, but a second finish out of that class is going to be sitting in 6th place. Blair Holloman, Michael Madden with a great race for a lot of that one. They only find themselves about 0.15 of a second apart. Holloman getting the edge there for 7th. Lucas Lyons trying to climb out of the basement here in the point standing. 17 out coming in. He'll finish in 9th with a strong run, and Austin Purnell will round out the top 10.
Kyle Spees has some fans out there in YouTube world. He will finish in 11th. Rob Yost Jr. with a great drive. He will finish in 12th. Michael Larchin 13th there for JW Racing. His teammate Lane Doyle in 14th for JW as well. And then Nathan Nixon for Rat Pack Racing will take 15th.
16th place in the last truck on the lead lap will be Jose Castellanos. Bo Tiffany be first one lap down, and 17th. Landon Cardulo was, we saw him off track there at the end, but still good for 18th place. 19th in the last one lap down will be Jose Ruiz, our bubble driver, entering this race. And 20th place, 2 laps down out of the field of 30, will be Wally Babb.
Well, let's get Trevor Williams up into the booth and talk to him about his 3rd place performance here tonight. Trevor, welcome to the booth.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Man, it is good. Great drive out there tonight. I mean, started off 3rd, ended up in 3rd. Tell us about your race.
Yeah, thank you. I was keeping Jensick there in my sights, and then the pace car pulled off, so I just pretty much rode the rest of the time. I mean, I felt like Brad and Matthew in the 51 and I were going to have a pretty decent battle there for a while, and then they got together and we kind of all spread out, and I just kept it clean.
And honestly, it feels like that was kind of the big goal in this race, but I feel like it was a little bit more for you in this case this week, just because it's been a rough run. You've had a lot of that kind of snake bit moments here in the past few weeks, closing out the regular season and really getting that momentum back. So it felt like staying on the track, getting this 3rd place finish, going to be a huge thing for you as we get ready to go to Kentucky next week.
Yeah, it is, and honestly, I'm not a road course guy. I'm kind of like a lot of people. I know Watkins Glen really well. I think I raced this track one time in a Mazda MX-5 race in a week 13. So, I mean, I came this weekend. I practiced pretty hard, and it paid off. And, yeah, hopefully that bad luck's behind us, and we can look through the windshield here.
Well, yeah, now we're going back to a classic mile and a half in Kentucky, but then the next 3 weeks after that get a little interesting. You got Iowa, and then you have Auto Club, and then you have Gateway, a track that the Truck Series hasn't been to yet. So tell us what you have coming up. Are you just looking at Kentucky, or are you looking a little bit ahead too?
For the most part, Kentucky, but I'm excited. I like the little weird tracks, so I really like Gateway. Iowa's all right, so I'm excited to go down the stretch here. Hopefully we can stay out of trouble and the team can, go far in this race and we can get the job done.
All right, man. Well, tell us who you have to thank here tonight before we let you get back to your team.
Well, first of all, I got to thank my team, Justin and JW Racing and all my guys. We work together really well, and they do a great job. Sloondor Sports, my main sponsor, Rufu Sports, MMA, Rogue Energy. Thank all them, of course. And most of all, thank you guys. I mean, I love going back and watching these broadcasts. It's awesome every week. And big shout out to my dad and Kelly and everybody that's out there watching.
Well, man, congratulations. Another great race for you here tonight. Setting yourselves up really well for the next round of the playoffs. But congratulations here tonight on the third place finish, and we'll let you get back to it. But have a great night.
Thank you, guys. Have a good night.
All right, let's see what we can do to get Brad Herman up here, who finished it off in second place here tonight and locking himself in to the next round of the playoffs. Brad, how's it going, man?
Good. How about you guys?
Doing good, doing good. Are you excited? You're in the next round of the playoffs now.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited. Could have had one more, but I mean, he's an alien around these places.
He is.
So.
He's insane.
I mean, hindsight, if it was like Watkins Glen and he wasn't there, we'd had 2 wins at this point. But what are you gonna do? He taught me a lot about this track tonight, so he helped me quite a bit, probably enough to get the second place.
Well, and the big thing now is we got all the road courses behind us and moved to Kentucky to close out the opening round. You don't really have a whole lot that you got to be worried about with Kentucky in terms of getting to that next round. And we get, as Sean just said a moment ago, we got a pretty awkward second round that's going to be coming up. So how's that balance go on getting ready for Kentucky and looking ahead to tracks like Iowa and Gateway coming up in that second round?
Yeah, I definitely feel like it's going to give us more time to prepare for it. But yeah, those 2 tracks are definitely going to be tough. You can get caught up real quick and be down in points, but being locked in definitely help, and trying to secure some extra points will be nice.
Well, tell us about the team aspect of everything, because I know Zuyos is one of those teams that's kind of on the bubble of getting into the playoffs for the team side. What is it like in that team room as you're driving? I mean, what's the feeling there?
I think it's the best team-oriented team I've been on so far, with just how we cling together, especially with the 2 teams having more hands on deck to help each other out with different tracks and who knows what. So it definitely helps a lot having more heads, and the team aspect is great.
Good deal, man. Well, who do you have to thank here tonight before we let you get back to your team?
Well, I definitely got to thank Zuyost and Jenzik tonight. Got to thank Blair for this awesome paint job. Got to thank TJ's team for being on board. Hopefully we can get him another championship this year and keep moving forward.
All right, man. Well, we will look forward to it, and we definitely look forward to seeing you next week, but also in the next round of the playoffs. So have a great night tonight, and then get right back to work.
Thanks, you guys too.
All right, let's get our winner up here into the booth. And, Sean, I'm not going to lie to you, man. Neither of us picked you because we didn't want the easy pick. So,
all right. I won't take offense to that.
Tell me the secret, man. Tell me the secret of getting around Mid-Ohio, because you're the one that had it figured out.
Well, I'm going to say it's the same secret as the Roval. You just be nice to the truck, and the truck's nice to you. I mean, I'm not really pushing hard at all. I kind of drove maybe like 75% that whole race, just trying to save some tire and see where it got me there at the end, and got me a 22-second win.
It was a huge performance there tonight. Both those wins now, I think it's about 45 seconds combined over the couple of wins between the Roval and tonight. But road courses are done now. We go back to a little bit more of what we're used to. We got, 3/4 mile track at Iowa in the next round. We got the mile at Gateway, a mile and a half next week at Kentucky. Getting back to these ovals, what's it going to take? I know obviously you got 5 wins, 2 of them at road courses, 3 of them coming from ovals, but what's it going to take in these next 4 races to go from locked into the next round to getting into Vegas for that championship race?
Yeah, I mean, it's just going to take good finishes and just not making too many mistakes, not getting caught up in other people's stuff. So hopefully it won't be fast enough to keep all the mess behind me, because I know Iowa and Gateway, I'm expecting those to be a little messy. So as long as I'm in front of all that, it should be good with those.
Well, man, I mean, you've just been completely dominant, especially here at these road courses. So looking forward to the next round of the playoffs and everything, can you keep this dominance going? And I mean, is it something that you're kind of upset that we're getting back to square one in the next round of the playoffs? I mean, what's your plan for next week, since you don't really need anything to get into the next round?
I'm still going to run fast, so that's my plan for next week. Unfortunately, I didn't win that regular season championship there, so I'm just going to keep that momentum I got going now and see where it takes me.
Well, man, great job out there tonight. Tell us who you have to thank here tonight before we let you get back to celebrating.
Thank all the Rat Pack guys. Big thank you to Mr. Yost there for putting up all those practice sessions. Definitely did me well, and hopefully it did everyone else well. Being able to help everyone out the best I could. Thanks Sparkle and Shine and Premier Racing Setups.
Well, man, great job out there tonight, and we will see you next week as we get to Kentucky. But keep it rolling.
All right, thank you. See you next week.
All right, buddy. All right, we'll drop him back down into his booth. But taking a look at our next broadcast tomorrow night, we are headed to Phoenix, and that's always a fun one.
That's always been it's just tight racing. There's going to be some cautions the way that track lays out. It's just so interesting there. A whole lot on the line. There's going to be guys that are trying to make up some ground after we had the road course last week or 2 weeks ago for the opening portion of this round for the Xfinity Series, the Silverback Tax Series. There's just so much that these guys are going to have on their plate at a very difficult track, and track we could see 5-6 wide at times with that dog leg. It's going to be a wild one tomorrow.
Man, it'll be fun. I really do love that dog leg. It's a lot of fun to see. So definitely come back and watch that tomorrow night, February 23rd at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. But for all of us here at Speed Racing Network and for all the drivers out there on the track, we thank you all for watching, and always remember to go faster.